Now, there's this saying that people often use. I've actually used that saying a few times myself. When people say, oh, you're failing to read the room, oh, you didn't read the room, that's why this happened, and so on. If you think about it, that saying is loaded with meaning. Now, yeah, I've been thinking about it. And, the other day I made a video reacting to the immigration white paper published, a few days ago, the one that was announced by Keir Starmer, UK Prime Minister. Now, reading the comments after I posted that video, and also going on X, reading comments, going on TikTok, reading comments by immigrants, Africans, one thing is becoming clear to me. I'm starting to realize, or I'm beginning to wonder, if we're really reading the room. Because I get the sense that we are not processing what is happening right now, the shift that is happening, not just in the UK, but globally. I get the sense that we are not processing those changes in the manner that we ought to be processing them. This is the feeling that I'm getting. The reason I'm saying we are failing to read the room, or we are not processing these changes in the way that we ought to be processing them, is the fact that of all the options that we have on the table, going to Africa or going back to the motherland is not one of them, or it doesn't appear to be among the list. We are saying that if the UK doesn't work out, we can always go to Switzerland, we can always go to Canada, we can always go to Japan, we can always go to Germany. And I've been hearing, people have been suggesting some countries that I never thought Africans would actually suggest or would actually consider going to. I won't say which countries they are, but when I'm looking at these countries, these are countries that we as Africans never really used to talk about, like as options. And it is not because there's anything wrong with those countries, no, but it is because, number one, because of the language, and number two, because the culture there is like vastly different. The reason I'm saying that is because, if you come from Zimbabwe, for example, going to an English speaking country is quite easy because Zimbabwe is an English speaking country. We grew up pretty much understanding the culture, speaking the language, and so on. So it is quite easy for us to settle in the UK, to assimilate, and so on. The same way it is easy for other African nations to settle, let's say, in France, because there are other African countries that speak French. But what I'm saying is right now, there are some countries that are starting to pop up as suggestions, countries that I never used to see, countries I never thought Africans would actually live. It appears to me as if Africa is not even on the table as an option, like a real option, a solution to our problems. And that really makes me sad. Generally speaking, in Africa, things are moving in the right direction. According to my opinion, the way I'm seeing things are starting to move. But I'm also saying that things are not moving in the pace that they ought to be moving, or we are still feeling as if nothing is really changing that much. Yeah, the reason I'm saying that, my justification for saying that, is the fact that we are still not seeing Africa as a solution to these global changes that are happening, especially Africans living abroad. We are not yet confident enough to say, okay, we can just pick our bags and go back to Africa. I know I'm going to get a job. I know I'm going to get opportunities to do A, B, C, D. We are not confident yet. And the reasons could be that we have lived abroad for so long and we have now become comfortable over here, and we are hesitant to give up what we've become accustomed to. Yes, people survive in Africa, and I know for a fact that even if I were to go back to Zimbabwe today, I will survive. But at the same time, I've been living here for so long and I've become used to a certain kind of lifestyle. So this is a contributing factor when we are looking at Africa as a solution to our problems. And this is why we end up not putting it on our list, or if it is on our list, it is not at the top. Reading the comments, listening to the conversations that are out there. However, when it's all said and done, looking at everything and looking at the bigger picture, we need to ask ourselves some soul-searching questions. And one of the questions that I always ask myself is, when is it going to stop? Here's another question. For how long are we going to continue running away from the motherland, from Africa? Realistically speaking, running away or emigrating to another country to seek greener pastures, realistically speaking, looking at the global shift, everything that is happening nowadays, right now in 2025, how realistic is that solution right now? Yes, you can move abroad. I'm not saying it is impossible. It is possible, but at what cost? Because right now, most of us, immigrants that is, we live in constant fear, constant stress, because we don't know when the visa rules are going to change. We don't know when the next goalpost is going to be moved. We don't know if we're going to be reunited with our families, because some of us were here without our families. Our visas have got restrictions. Some of us were here raising children who don't even know their extended family. They don't know their cousins. They don't know their grandparents. They don't know who their aunts are. They don't know who their relatives are. Some of us, we are attending funerals via video calls because we can't afford to go back home to mourn with others. We send money home, and somehow that makes us feel a little bit better because at least we're contributing towards something. But guess what? Money won't replace family. It is not going to make up for the fact that our children are growing up not knowing who their relatives are because we can't afford to take them home. It's not going to make up for the fact that we haven't seen our husbands, our wives for years, for months. Money doesn't make up for the fact that we are ending up with mental health problems due to worry, constant stress, even physical ailments, because if stress prolongs, then it triggers other illnesses as well, including cancer. Yes, we escaped poverty, but guess what? We also escaped community. We escaped that sense of belonging. We escaped culture, and we even escaped ourselves. We escaped a lot of things. So this is where I'm coming from with this. And here's another thing as well. We are referred to as immigrants, whereas other people are called expats. Yes, I know what an expat is. I know the definition, but stay with me, because we also have Africans who are expats, who are here on a temporary basis with the intention of going back home. And then we have immigrants as well who have settled here, who don't know when they're going to go back home. So I get that. But the point I'm trying to make is, even those Africans who are experts in the true sense of the word, if they call themselves that, they are corrected to say, no, you are an immigrant. This is how people see us. Whereas if someone comes from Australia, comes from Canada, comes from even South Africa, people accept South Africans as expats, but not someone from Zimbabwe, not someone from Kenya, not someone from Nigeria. And you have to ask yourself why. The reason, I know full well why that is. We are seen as people we've got nowhere to go. And this is the saddest part. We've also started to believe that too. Judging by the things we say, the comments we make, we've also started to believe that we've got nowhere to go. We'd rather go anywhere but Africa. This is the saddest part. Yes, I'm here, I live abroad, but it doesn't mean that life is smooth sailing. Yes, you look at me, I'm dressed well, I've got my face on and everything, I smile and everything, but it doesn't mean that life is smooth. It doesn't mean that. I'm not saying that I have solutions. I don't have solutions. I'm just encouraging us to start having different conversations. And I'm also encouraging us to invest in Africa. And I'm also encouraging us to tell better stories about Africa, because words are powerful. The narrative, there is power in the narrative. And we know full well that there are good things. There are a lot of good things in Africa. Even if we don't physically return to Africa, we can tell better stories about where we come from. We can mentally, emotionally, spiritually connect or reconnect. And by doing that, we're inspiring our children, our grandchildren to want to explore or to find out more about Africa for themselves. It will inspire them to want to invest in Africa because you have been telling them good stories about Africa. They're not just hearing, oh, Africa is poor, oh, Africa is this and that. As parents living abroad, as grandparents living abroad, it is our responsibility, our duty to inspire our children, to motivate them. The next generation doesn't have to grow up thinking, you know what, there's no other option except to run. It doesn't have to be like that. It really doesn't. We deserve not just survive, not just live a life where we are constantly stressing, worrying, fighting for visas, fighting for our family to rejoin us, this and that. We deserve to thrive. We deserve a life of peace where we can just be. We deserve a life like that. And most importantly, we deserve dignity because, yeah, there are times when I feel that, yeah, that dignity is kind of compromised because of our circumstances, because of the things that happen to us, things we don't have any control over. Yeah, there are times when we come across as helpless, like people, we've got nowhere to go, as I said before, people who don't have any options except to keep running from one country to the next. And I'm saying, when is that going to stop? When are we going to get our dignity back?